Marvel character more famous than Spider-Man? That is the question. Coming in at number 10 is the completely iconic Peter Pariquois. Peter Pariquois, the Spider-Man of Earth 311, is an incredible reimagining of the iconic hero, set in the Elizabethan era of Marvel's 1602 universe. Instead of a modern-day teenager, Peter is an orphaned apprentice to Sir Nicholas Fury and a servant of Queen Elizabeth I, navigating a world of spies, literal witch hunts, and political intrigue. His powers, gained after being bitten by a spider exposed to temporal energies, mirror those of the classic Spider-Man, including wall crawling, superhuman agility, and the famous spider senses. But his journey is shaped by the dangers and limitations of the 17th century. What isn't limited is his wardrobe. The 1602 spider suit is iconic, and it even has that little neck ruffle. 10 out of 10. Familiar Spider-Man themes, responsibility, loss, and heroism are reframed in a world of swords, sorcery, and Shakespearean drama. Peter's story is filled with unique twists. He's trained in espionage, falls in love with Virginia Dare, who was actually a real person by the way, and faces threats like Norman Osborn and Baron Octavius in forms fitting the era. His tragic and heroic end, battling the multiversal predator Morlun in the Globe Theater, underscores the timelessness of Spider-Man's courage and sacrifice, making Peter Pariquois a version that both honors and radically reinvents the legend. They might have fought in Shakespeare's theater, but Shakespeare could have never come up with something like this. Coming in at number 9 is a Spider-Man that we can't technically say the actual name of for fear of demonetization, so let's call him Spider-Merc. Peter Parker of Earth 8351, also known as the Spider-Merc, is a mind-blowing alternate version of Spider-Man because he fundamentally breaks from the classic friendly neighborhood hero archetype. In this universe, Peter's life takes a darker turn after he undergoes intense training with Wolverine, one of Marvel's most ruthless fighters. This mentorship transforms Peter into an eliminator who believes that some threats can only be dealt with through lethal force, a philosophy that couldn't be more different from the traditional Spider-Man's rule if he tried. He abandons Mary Jane for a new partner named Alex and becomes so skilled that he easily defeats top agents like Black Widow. His tactical suit is enhanced with hidden weapons and modified web shooters capable of delivering lethal force, making him an intimidating and unpredictable combatant. The internal conflict between his original ideals and his new, ruthless methods adds a complex, almost tragic layer to his character. Seeing a Spider-Man who is willing to terminate, isolated from his heroic peers and haunted by his choices, would shock anyone familiar with the web-slinger's usual moral compass, making Earth 8351's Peter Parker a true compelling twist on the legend. Number 8. Patton Parnell. Patton Parnell from Earth 51412 is one of the most evil and disgusting alternate versions of Spider-Man in the Marvel multiverse. Unlike the heroic Peter Parker, Patton is a dark, twisted reflection, an introverted, disturbed teenager with a penchant for cruelty and a fascination with experimenting on animals. After being bitten by a genetically altered spider, Patton doesn't become a hero. Instead, he transforms into a monstrous, spider-like creature that preys on others and even consumes his own uncle. What makes Patton Parnell so shocking is how he subverts everything that fans expect from Spider-Man. Instead of using his powers for good, he becomes a predator, embodying the horror of unchecked power and suppressed urges. His story is a chilling reminder of how easily the Spider-Man mythos can be turned on its head, a disturbing and unforgettable take on the iconic web slinger. The part that personally freaks me out the most is that he has the ability to lay eggs in his victims. When he bites, he implants eggs in the victim. It's what he did to his version of MJ, Sarah Jane, and the next morning, hundreds of little spiders spilled out from her neck. And personally, if that happened to me, long walk of a short pier. I'm being so serious that is nightmare fuel. Number 7, Dr. Aaron Aikman. Dr. Aaron is a remarkable alternate version of Spider-Man from Earth 31411, whose intriguing nature stems from his unique fusion of cutting-edge science and spider-like abilities. A talented biologist specializing in insect and arachnid venoms, Aaron took the extraordinary step of resequencing his own DNA with genetically altered spider genes, granting him superhuman strength, agility, and of course, wall-crawling powers. Unlike Peter Parker, Aaron augmented his natural abilities with a sophisticated cybernetic armor equipped with advanced technology such as an internal helmet computer, web shooters capable of firing various web shapes, catapult propulsion boots, and a retractable neural pulse stinger. This blend of biological enhancement and high-tech gear makes him an innovative Spider-Man who stands out in the multiverse. His story is further enriched by his complex personal life, including his relationship relationship with Dr. Kuroi Ikegami and the tragic circumstances involving her daughter, which add an emotional depth to this heroic journey. Aaron's combination of scientific genius, experimental self-modification, and technological prowess would blow anyone's mind by showcasing a futuristic Spider-Man who is both a brilliant scientist and a high-tech warrior. This next Spider-Man had to go at number 6 for one reason. I guess technically 6 reasons. The 6-armed Spider-Man from Earth 92,100 is a confusing alternate version of Peter Parker that takes the classic hero in roughly 6 new directions. Unlike the familiar Spider-Man, this Peter Parker undergoes a mutation that gives him 4 extra arms, resulting in a total of 6. This transformation dramatically enhances his strength, agility, and web-slinging abilities, making him an even more dangerous force against villains. What makes this version truly fascinating is how it pushes the boundaries of what fans expect from Spider-Man. Imagine the visual spectacle and combat possibilities of a hero who can fight, swing, and strategize with 6 arms. It's a striking twist on the beloved character, challenging our perceptions and opening up a world of storytelling potential that's as thrilling as it is unexpected. At the halfway point is one of my favorite versions of Spider-Man, Petra Parker, the Princess Spider. When you combine a Disney princess with Spider-Man, you get Petra Parker, the Spider-Woman of Earth 423. She's a stunning twist on the classic Spider-Man mythos with her fresh perspective and unique flair. Petra brings a vibrant feminine energy to this hero, combining the iconic spider powers with her own distinct personality and style. Her world is full of a dazzling blend of familiar Spider-Man themes like responsibility and loss and heroism, but it's filtered through a new lens that challenges expectations and redefines what it means to be a web slinger. Her character isn't just a gender swap, she's a fully realized hero whose courage, intelligence, and wit make her a standout among the infinite spider variants. And encountering her story is a mind-blowing reminder of the limitless possibilities within the Marvel Universe. Plus, she wears a really pretty dress, and I just like looking at it. Number 4, you've seen her on the big screen, but the movie came out so long ago that I don't blame you if you forgot. Spider-Bite is a spider that operates in the virtual world. Her domain is completely virtual reality. Margot Kess from Earth 22,191 completely reimagines what it means to be a spider hero. Unlike pretty much any other Peter Parker, Margot is a young woman who takes on the mantle of Spider-Man in virtual reality. Her story stands out not just for her gender swap, but for the way she balances her superhero responsibilities with her own personal challenges and relationships, offering fresh perspectives on familiar Spider-Man themes. Margot's suit, abilities, and the world that she inhabits all reflect a creative twist on the Spider-Man legend, making her an inspiring and exciting character for fans who crave something new. She was featured in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and hopefully we will be seeing her again when the next one comes out in 2027. Number 3, Lady Spider. So what if Aunt May became Spider-Man? Wonder no more, because Earth 803 tackled that idea. Maybelle Riley, also known as Lady Spider, is a very unique twist on the Spider-Man character because instead of Peter becoming Spider-Man, Aunt May does. Maybelle hails from a steampunk-esque universe that is set in 1895, just to, make everything even cooler. A brilliant inventor who crafts her own mechanical spider arms and gadgets, relying on her intellect and engineering prowess rather than radioactive powers. May's Victorian-era sensibilities, combined with her fearless spirit and inventive genius, make her stand out among the Spider-Verse heroes. Lady Spider's ability to hold her own in battles alongside powered counterparts, all while sporting a corseted suit and wielding steam-powered tech, is visually stunning and thematically refreshing. She proves that courage and ingenuity can be just as powerful as superhuman abilities that makes her a truly mind-blowing addition to the Marvel multiverse. And number 2, Sun Spider. Charlotte Weber, also known as Sun Spider from Earth 20,023, is a witty and vibrant hero who uses mobility aids due to EDS, making her one of the few disabled superheroes in the Marvel Universe. Her web cane and crutches double as her signature weapons, turning what you might see as limitations into sources of strength and ingenuity. She shoots webs from her crutches, that's incredible. Charlotte's presence challenges stereotypes and brings much needed representation to superhero comics, showing that heroism can come in many forms. Her quick humor, inventive fighting style, and unapologetic confidence make her a standout among all spider heroes. We do have an honorable mention for this list because it's just so ridiculous and funny that I can't even believe it exists. There is a Spider-Man that prefers to defeat his villains by giving them a pastry. history. The Golden Sponge Cake Spider-Man of Earth 51,914 is a delightfully bizarre and mind-blowing alternate version of Peter Parker who stands out for being just truly whimsical. His adventures are filled with tongue-in-cheek humor, and he uses his powers not just to fight crime, but often to distribute sponge cakes and resolve conflicts in the most absurdly sweet ways imaginable. The Golden Sponge Cake Spider-Man is a testament to Marvel's creativity, showing just how far the multiverse can stretch that Spider-Man IP. And finally, number 1, Web Slinger. A cowboy-themed Spider-Man from a Wild West-inspired universe is the gift that keeps on giving. Patrick O'Hara, the Spider-Man of Earth 31,913, is an iconic alternate version of the Web Slinger. He fuses the classic superhero elements with the wild, untamable spirit of the Old West. Patrick is literally the coolest version of the character that I've come across, a cowboy who swings through the dusty streets of his frontier town using web shooters fashioned from his father's 6-shooters. Like, are you kidding? He's blending gunslinging with web slinging. Like, I don't think it's possible to be any cooler than that. His world is filled with outlaws and supernatural threats rather than supervillains, and he rides a trusty horse named Widow. The web slinger's unique blend of cowboy grit, spider powers, and a code of justice makes him stand out among the Spider-Verse heroes, offering fans a fresh, genre-bending take that's as cool as it is unexpected.
Poison is an alternate version of Peter Parker inspired by the Spider-Man story The Other. He hails from a what if where we explore the idea of what would have happened had Spider-Man rejected his connection to the spider within. Rejected instead of embracing his role as a spider totem, of course. This would have left Peter vulnerable basically to outside attack. Trapped within his cocoon with no way out, the symbiotic being that we often refer to as Venom sensed Peter's vulnerability and saw a chance to merge with him. Venom then leaves Matt Gargan to forcibly connect with Peter, and together they become Poison. Poison is horrifying and attempts to recruit Mary Jane as his partner, but after she rejects him, he believes that the corpse of Gwen Stacy will suit him better. Oh my goodness. Speaking of this weird, very weird ship though, do you agree with Peter? Who do you ship Spider-Man with? Do you ship him with Gwen? Do you ship him with MJ? Maybe it's Black Cat, maybe it's someone else. This future version of Spider-Man hails from a bleak reality. Here Peter ends up working at a flower shop after years of being a hero. No longer operating as Spider-Man, this version of Peter has become somewhat senile, frail, and honestly pretty old. He's also haunted by his past, having hallucinations of Mary Jane, who is of course now long dead. Mary Jane in this reality apparently died from being, how do I put this, intimately close to Peter, which he carries immense guilt over, obviously. Apparently his radioactiveness was not so good for MJ's body, ended up giving her cancer and sadly killed her in the end. Peter eventually does return to heroics, but even then it's a pretty sad return, with him mostly getting his butt whooped when he isn't busy being swept up in some kind of fantasy or hallucination that is built around his past. I-APEC is known in Marvel Comics as I-APEC the Decapitator and was once worshipped as a god in Peru. I-APEC is typically shown as having pointed teeth, snakes for hair with multiple arms, and his lower half being the hairy body and legs of, well, a spider. He ended up getting recruited to Norman Osborn's Dark Avengers to act as their Spider-Man after Norman Osborn escaped the raft the second time, this time successfully, and attempted to resurrect his organization, which was initially created to replace S.H.I.E.L.D., known as Hammer, which if you're wondering it doesn't stand for anything, and bring back his Dark Avengers. I-APEC was made to look more humanoid as a result here, more like Spider-Man with a genetic formula. Though unlike Spider-Man, he did still have 4 arms. Or well, unlike Spider-Man most days. Later on, he would also be coerced into serving on Luke Cage's Dark Avengers, which were actually kinda like DC's Suicide Squad. Matt Gargan is known as the Spider-Man villain Scorpion, but at one point he too became an alternate version of Spider-Man, don't you know? Albeit a really messed up and twisted version, as he served as Spider-Man for Norman Osborn's Dark Avengers, right at the start before I-APEC. As expected, Osborn's Dark Avengers team was primarily made up of villains who were typically posing as their own heroic counterparts. In Mac's case, the heroic mantle he was made to fill in for was, of course, Spider-Man. Although he wasn't so much Spider-Man but an alternate Venom posing as Spider-Man. His suit was made of the symbiotic being known as Venom, who was merged with him at the time. And this often turned Matt Gargan's Spider-Man into a pretty horrifying monster who threatened to, and often actually did, devour those people who stood in his way. Even sometimes almost eating his own teammates. Not a great team player. In fact, Norman Osborn had to put in some work to control Venom at times, and to also make him look less horror story and more friendly neighborhood. This is a version of Peter Parker who also merged with the Carnage symbiote and was possibly driven criminally insane by it. Or was criminally insane to begin with in this reality, perhaps. This version of Peter hails from the reality of Earth 15. Not much is known about his home reality, mainly what we know of it involved Peter's own history. This alternate version of the character bonded with the alien symbiote that is often referred to as Carnage under the 616. He became notorious for the terrible acts that he committed and became known as a killer, a criminal who apparently enjoyed hurting people. He made his first appearance in the Exiles in issue number 12, where he showed up with a team of other heroes who were drafted into a multiversal version of Weapon X. Heroes. In the same future that MC2 Peter and his daughter Mayday, aka Spider-Woman, hail from, known as the alternate reality of Earth 982, Jessica Drew, aka also Spider-Woman, also has a child. MC2 is widely known for being the reality where superheroes get to grow up, retire, or settle down to live a somewhat normal life. Sometimes also amidst continued heroics for those who don't end up retiring. As such, Jessica is also one of those heroes. She gets married and ends up pregnant, but unfortunately her son Jerry is born with a rare blood-borne illness. Oh no. In an attempt to cure Jerry, Jessica submits him to the same experimentation which saved her as a child, and also gave her her spider powers. The same happens to Jerry, who also gets spider powers and ends up becoming a hero, taking up the mantle of Spider-Man after being inspired by stories that his mom tells him of her days as a hero, and of course after being inspired probably by also Spider-Man's adventures. This next version of Peter hails from the reality belonging to the series Marvel Universe vs. the Punisher, the reality of 11080, where Frank Castle, aka the Punisher, was the last known survivor who was forced to take on, you guessed it, the entire Marvel Universe after the world was ravaged by a deadly and horrifying plague. Here, Peter ends up becoming Patient Zero after a virus is accidentally released that turns people into violent cannibals. Peter himself devours Rhino during a hockey match and is taken to be researched by the Fantastic Four. However, he does not stay quarantined as the virus spreads to Ben Grimm of the FF, who releases him, and he goes on to become the leader of one of the tribes involved in a turf war. The Punisher ends up killing him after helping to rescue a pregnant Mary Jane in exchange for information that Patient Zero has. Spider-Man has to be one of my all-time favorite alternate characters in the history of Marvel. I just love that she became a full-fledged hero in her own right, and that she helped to defeat the Inheritors the second time around, while also deciding to raise all the then made baby versions of them. I was really thinking if anyone could have, helped the Inheritors to grow up to not be spider totem devouring villains, it would have been Aunt May, if it was possible. Spider-Man hails from the Earth of 3123 and comes from What If issue number 23 originally, where we ask the question, what would happen if Aunt May had been bitten by a radioactive spider in the place of her nephew, Peter Parker? The answer is Spider-Man, and I love it. Spider-Man 2211 is like Spider-Man 2099, but from even further into the future. He is known as a time spinner and does his best to protect the time field. This version of Spider-Man is named Max Bourne, and his appearance also differs from the Spider-Man of Earth 616 and the Spider-Man of 2099, in the regard that his costume has multiple mechanized arms, kind of like Dr. Octopus, or more specifically, like Dr. Octopus's look when he becomes Spider-Man and is known as Superior Spider-Man. Max Bourne's arch-nemesis is Hobgoblin of 2211, who it turns out is actually his own daughter, Robin. Along with Spider-Man of Earth 616 and Spider-Man of 2099, he faces and defeats Hobgoblin only for her true identity to be revealed to him. Gosh. Pat Parnell has to be one of the most evil incarnations of Spider-Man around, and he also has to be one of my favorites. He literally becomes a Spider-Man, turning into a spider-like human hybrid after he is bit by a radioactive spider. Patton was also kind of always a creepy kid, likely as a result of mistreatment that he suffered at the mercy of his Uncle Ted. He had a crush on his next door neighbor, Sarah Jane, and enjoyed disturbing scientific pursuits such as burning ants with a magnifying glass. When he transformed into Spider-Man, he became more confident in himself, but also acquired a taste for live animal and human flesh. He also was capable of laying eggs, as Uncle Ted would horrifyingly and personally find out after young Patton took revenge on him. And I'll just leave that image in your mind.
Coming in at number 10 is The Amazing Spider. On Earth 11638, Uncle Ben never loses his life, and instead he helps train Peter Parker with his new spider powers and eventually even helps him to form Parker Industries. Now, given the title of this list, you should know that things aren't all hunky-dory. Peter and Uncle Ben end up building a machine that allows Peter to lure alternate versions of Spider-Man to his reality, where he then absorbs their powers to increase his own, making him the most powerful hero on Earth and eliminating the need for any other hero, but also taking the lives of other alternate hims. See, that did take a very dark turn. When he tried to do this to the Spider-Man from Earth 616, our Spider-Man, this powerful version of Peter loses his life and his soul is sent to hell, where, with the assistance of the Infernal Hulk, he is fused with the spirit of vengeance, becoming the Ghost Spider. Not the Gwen Stacy Ghost Spider, but a Ghost Rider Spider. A Ghost Rider Spider. That's what we're going with. Ghost Rider, for any who don't know, is insanely powerful. He has been called in to deal with the Hulk and has even gone toe-to-toe with Galactus, so this Spider-Man Ghost Rider hybrid is no joke at all. Plus he's kinda evil and he looks really cool. Number 9. Assassin Spider-Man. In What If Spider-Man vs. Wolverine number 1, we are introduced to Spider Assassin, a Spider-Man variant who is just a little bit more loose when it comes to the morals that he follows. In his universe, with great power comes great responsibility and greater enemies, which led the Peter of Earth 8351 to leave New York City in order to protect his family from the villains who would make personal strikes against him. Instead, Peter joined up with Wolverine, and because of their time traveling and working together, he is much less opposed to sending criminals to the afterlife, meaning he does it on the regulars. He is also almost always serious, not doing his normal quips and jokes that we are really used to from Peter, who usually uses it to cope with difficult or precarious situations. His serious nature is also reflected in his costume, with a much darker look, especially those black eyes, which are really cool. His web shooters have also been shown to shoot black webs in some panels, and they also include some more lethal means of dealing with his foes. He is an effective addition to the Spider-Man army though when it was formed, and an extremely effective Spider-Man just in general. Number 8. Marvel Universe vs. The Punisher. In this universe, the Punisher interrupts an arms deal involving what he thinks is a briefcase nuke, only to discover that it is in fact a man-made virus that, for Frank Castle, makes him immune to infection, illness, and disease. That's really good, but it didn't quite do this for everyone else. The problem here is that the chemical weapon found its way into the water supply and then into the food, and started in New York, spreading to the whole world through infected travelers. And then it started turning people and heroes into starting with Spider-Man. Spider-Man of Earth 11080 became infected with one of Marvel's deadliest viruses, which transformed him into a raging tribal. He viciously ate the Rhino on live TV and started an infection that eventually took over the entire world. In this new post-apocalypse, this terrifyingly evil Spider-Man became Patient Zero and took control of a portion of the former New York City, facing a rival tribe of other man-eaters led by the Kingpin, who took Spider-Man's mate, Mary Jane, prompting Patient Zero Spider-Man to hire the immune Frank Castle to rescue her. But then he met his sticky end, so Number 7. Spider from Earth 15. There are a lot of characters who go by the name of the Spider, including a pulp hero from way back in the day, but specifically today we are talking about a Peter Parker variant that's bonded with the Carnage symbiote coming from Earth 15. The Spider of Earth 15 is a much more sadistic, sociopathic, red-headed version of Peter Parker, and that's the scary part. He's a ginger. He even claims that he has been sentenced to a total of 67 life sentences in prison for the crimes that he has committed, but of course, to make him just a bit more lovable, he has a sense of humor very much like that of Deadpool. It's great, if not a little unnerving. The Spider was introduced in Exiles number 12 and was a big part of the reality-saving Weapon X team featured in that story, being a sometimes leader of the team. As a Carnage-bonded sociopath, he was pretty powerful, but he nonetheless was sent to the afterlife by a blast from Firestar in Exiles number 44. When you're dealing with the multiverse, there is bound to be someone stronger than you, no matter what you do and who you are, even if you're a scary Spider-Man. Number 6. Zombie Spider-Man. Yes, Zombie Spider-Man is essentially the same Spider-Man everyone is used to, all the same powers at least, except after being bit by a zombie, he now also has a ravenous hunger that cannot be sated no matter what, combined with the fact that he is essentially undead and can take a whole whack more punishment. Both of those factors led him and a group of other heroes, who were zombified, to consume the Silver Surfer and Galactus, which gave them all the power cosmic. With the power cosmic, the zombie Galacti, which is what they called themselves, have the ability to absorb and tap ambient cosmic energy into their bodies at will and expel those energies, like channeling beams of energy through their hands and teleporting through time and space, devouring entire planets. With this power, they have the potential to phase through objects, accelerate the evolution of life forms, see the past by peeling back the layers of time, time travel, and manipulate, absorb, and discharge any form of energy or radiation. But they mainly use it to get to the next snack. Though Spider Zombie loses all this power eventually, he still had it and was an incredibly powerful version of Spider-Man, and also a really scary one because he would eat your face. Number 5. Dark Ages. Dark Ages is, in my opinion, a pretty underrated story. Essentially, a superpowered machine known as the Unmaker was causing massive devastation in the core of the planet, and in an attempt to stop the threat, a portal created by Doctor Strange released an EMP that completely crippled the world's technology. The story essentially sees the world rebuilding itself without the use of any advanced technology, while also dealing with the many threats of the world, including werewolves, vampires, and supervillains, specifically the mutant apocalypse. Now, Miles Morales was one of the survivors of this new society, although here, Miles became bonded to the Venom symbiote, which he used to try and help people during the first early years. They worked really well together until the Carnage symbiote also forcibly bonded itself to Miles as well. Now, this isn't like Carnage kicked out Venom or anything like that. It's Carnage corrupting Venom, and the two symbiotes together both agreed to take over Miles' body. And they even went to work for Apocalypse in exchange for a ship to escape the Earth. All the while, Miles remained unconscious, being used as an unwilling host. It sounds horrifying because it is. That's scary. Number 4. Poison. Ever since the first time Venom and Spider-Man bonded together, that pesky little symbiote would continuously try to merge with Peter Parker, but he would only get about halfway before Peter could repel him. Now, what happens if Venom finally gets what he wants? Well, in the What If Spider-Man the Other story, we get to find out. After Peter is semi-defeated by Morlun and cocoons himself under Brooklyn Bridge, he is offered the chance to be resurrected by the Spider God called the Other. But instead of allowing this like he does in the normal continuity, Peter refuses and is instead stuck in his cocoon, half alive. Now we cut to Venom, who, being Spider-Man's crazy ex-girlfriend, senses the vulnerability of his soulmate and completely ditches his current host, Mac Gargan. He intercepts Peter's body, and after months of struggling inside the cocoon, monstrously breaking down Peter Parker, Venom fully bonds to Peter. Now the pair are truly one and the same, with all the fully realized powers that come with being a symbiote, which include being able to replicate itself and host more than one body, producing stingers that are strong enough to pierce Luke Cage's skin, and the newly dubbed being, known as Poison, was even able to resurrect Gwen Stacy in a form that seems to take after Venom's offspring, Carnage. Number 3. Spider-Man Pestilence. Yes, that's right, everyone's favorite web-slinger was a Horseman of Apocalypse at more than one point, but every time he has been, he was Pestilence. So yes, you lucky nerds are getting 2 points in one here. Look at that! Don't say I never gave you anything, ever. On Earth 5701, Peter goes full spider in his horseman form with 4 arms and 4 legs. It's actually super freaky and I do not like it. He, Archangel, and Famine are tasked with going on a merry reality hopping hunt of Cable, which they ultimately fail at. Now in the Earth 10082 reality, Peter is Pestilence again, but a different kind of terrifying as he is fused with his Pestilence steed because of the techno-organic virus, becoming all white and hairy and pure nightmare fuel. He's like a person with a horse on him. It's scary. He and the other horsemen of this reality go to the mainline Earth to fight the Avengers with Apocalypse, and they kind of lose, but whatever. Number 2, Spider-Man. In Spider-Geddon number 3 of 2018, we are introduced to Spider-Man, a colony of thousands of radioactively powered spiders who in a moment of absolute horror consumed a high school kid by the name of Peter Parker when he fell into their enclosure at Horizon Labs. After consuming Peter Parker, something strange happened. Instead of the spiders just going about their lives, the whole gaggle of spiders gained a sort of hive mind and they took on the form of Peter himself and began fighting crime in the aptly named Cruel York of Earth 11580. Other than his usual Spider-Man powers and the benefits of being a swarm of spiders, the colony is also able to poison its victims with a bite, or if they're hungry for power, they can devour them whole, and it's incredibly hard to actually take out this version of Spider-Man, as even a single spider of the thousands who make up this being survives. It means technically, Spider-Man is also still alive, and it can and will eventually multiply to rebuild itself, or himself, or their self, whatever you want to call him. I don't know. And finally, in at number 1 today, it's Peter Parnell. I think this is the most terrifying version of Spider-Man I've ever seen. Maybe even more so than Spider-Man, and he's a colony of spiders. Peter Parnell is nothing like Peter Parker. He's a sociopath, a maniac, and he has the ability to transform into a monster Spider-Man hybrid with 8 eyes, 8 limbs, and massive spider-like fangs. Seeing this bald monster thing crawl around your walls and ceiling, that's scary enough, but knowing that he ate at least 3 people, including his uncle, and can implant hundreds of baby spiders into you just by biting you is absolutely nightmare-inducing. Luckily, he gets defeated pretty soon after his creation by Morlun, but at the time Peter Parnell from Earth 51412 was around, he was very powerful and extremely scary. Number 10, Spider-Man Punisher. On Earth 71928, location of the What If Peter Parker Became the Punisher story, Peter's life remained pretty much the same as Earth 616 Peter, that is, until the night Uncle Ben's life was drawn to a close. Instead of following the classic story, Peter caught and dispatched the killer using the same weapon that took his uncle's life. Now Peter tried to avoid going full murderous Punisher at first, trying to go his normal route, but since criminals are criminals and they always come back, and he knows how much more permanent of a solution it is to just take them out, he went full force into that lifestyle. He carried the blam blam that took his Uncle Ben's life, as well as other weaponry with multiple different types of ammunition that allowed him to take down the Sinister Six with ease, and he was even able to save Gwen Stacy. Going by Punisher Spider, his suit also took a skull logo instead of the traditional spider logo due to the fact that the spider that gave him his powers was a noble false widow, which has a cephalothorax that looks like a skull, and it's not because he wanted to look like the Punisher. I promise. Number 9, Spider-Man 2099. Miguel O'Hara. Instead of getting bitten, Miguel's DNA was biologically mixed with the spider's DNA to save his life after he was forcibly addicted to a future substance by his employer. Although the process of gaining his powers differed from Peter Parker, Miguel was still granted many of the same abilities at a pretty similar level. One thing that differs largely is Miguel's spider sense. He doesn't have one. Instead, Miguel has advanced super senses similar to someone like Daredevil. But further straying from the 616 Peter Parker, Miguel has some abilities that are just wholly unique to him. For example, he possesses an incredible level of super speed as well as telepathic communication abilities. His webs are also organic, which differs from Spider-Man's web shooters, and he also has fangs and claws on his fingers and toes that he can use in combat. But on top of all those powers, Miguel is from the year 2099. Which means obviously that he naturally has a much more advanced set of technology at his disposal, mainly focusing around his suit, which is incredibly durable and has an artificial intelligence, which is just cool. Number 8, Spider's Man. In Spider-Geddon number 3 of 2018, we are introduced to Spider's Man, which is a colony of thousands of radioactively powered spiders who, in a moment of absolute horror, consumed a high school boy by the name of, let me just check my notes here. Oh, Peter Parker, when he fell into their enclosure at Horizon Labs. After consuming Peter, something strange happened. Instead of the spiders just going about their lives, the whole gaggle of spiders gained a sort of hive mind, and they took on the form of Peter himself and began fighting crime in the aptly named Cruel York of Earth 11580. Now, other than his usual Spider-Man powers and the benefits of being a swarm of spiders, the colony is also able to poison its victims with a bite, or if they're hungry for power, devour them whole, and it's incredibly hard to actually de-life this version of Spider-Man, as even a single spider of the thousands who make up this being survives. It means that technically, Spider-Man is also still alive, and it can and will eventually multiply to rebuild itself. Himself? Their self? One of those. You know what I'm saying. Number 7. poison. One never truly forgets their first love. And that's apparently true for formless, tar-like, brain-eating aliens too. Ever since the first time Venom and Spider-Man bonded together, that pesky symbiote would continuously try to merge with Peter Parker, but he would only get about halfway before Peter could repel him. Now, what happens if Venom finally gets what he wants? In the What If Spider-Man the Other story, we get to find out. After Peter is semi-defeated by Morlun and cocoons himself under Brooklyn Bridge, he's offered the chance to be resurrected by the Spider God. But instead of allowing this like he does in the normal continuity, Peter refuses and is instead stuck inside of his cocoon like half alive. Now you cut to Venom, who, being Spider-Man's crazy ex-girlfriend, senses the vulnerability of his soulmate and completely ditches his current host, Mac Gargan, and he goes to intercept Peter's body. And after months and months of struggling inside the cocoon, monstrously breaking down Peter Parker, Venom fully bonds to Peter. Now, the pair are truly one, which is something Venom always wanted, with all the fully realized powers that come with being a symbiote, which include being able to replicate itself and host more than one body. He can also produce stingers that are strong enough to pierce Luke Cage's skin, which is insane, and the newly dubbed being known as Poison was even able to resurrect Gwen Stacy in a form that seems to take after Venom's offspring Carnage, although I'm not too sure about that one. Number 6, the Amazing Spider. It appears that Uncle Ben leaving this plane of existence is actually a really good thing. Hear me out. See, on Earth 11638, Uncle Ben never loses his life, and instead, he helps train Peter Parker with his new Spider-Man powers, and eventually even helps him to form Parker Industries. Now things aren't all hunky-dory though, as you can probably guess. Peter and Uncle Ben end up building a machine that allows Peter to lure alternate versions of himself to this reality where he absorbs their powers to increase his own, making him the most powerful hero on the Earth and eliminating the need for any other superhero. See, that did take a very dark turn. But when he tried to do this to the Spider-Man from Earth 616, this powerful version of Peter loses his life and his soul is sent to Hell, where, with the assistance of the Infernal Hulk, he is fused with the spirit of vengeance, becoming the Ghost Spider. Now it's not the Gwen Stacy Ghost Spider, but a Ghost Rider Spider, which is just fun to say, and that's what I'm gonna go with. Ghost Rider, for any who don't know, is insanely powerful. He has been called in to deal with the Hulk and has even gone toe-to-toe with Galactus. So, this Spider-Man Ghost Rider, or Spider Ghost Rider, which I said I was gonna call him, I'm getting mixed up with words now, is no joke. He's no joke at all. Plus, he looks really cool. Number 5, Phoenix Force Spider-Man. Okay, so this is a slightly more confusing pick for this list. Most fans of Marvel Comics know that the Phoenix Force is an incredibly powerful entity within the universe, essentially the embodiment of life itself. Many characters have played the role of host for the Phoenix Force, and not always with the best outcomes. But Spider-Man wielding the immense power of the Phoenix Force first appeared in a comic in Spider-Man number 25 in 1990. Now unfortunately though, this was later revealed to just be an illusion. But since it was so incredibly awesome to see, it inspired another appearance. However, this time it was taken by a video game. Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro, which actually saw Peter Parker wielding the Phoenix Force with real Phoenix Force powers. It's not comic books, but it happened, so it's kinda cool. Number 4, Cosmic Spider-Man. There was a point in time when Peter Parker of Earth 616 absorbed the Enigma Force and became the most powerful version of Spider-Man we have ever even seen. Even capable of punching the Hulk into orbit. Now in the mainline continuity, he doesn't have it for very long, but on Earth 13, he kept the powers and became the hero Captain Universe. So this Peter Parker has all the usual Spider-Man powers, but also now has cosmic awareness, energy manipulation, giving him energy blasts and flight. He can manipulate matter, making his webs as strong as adamantium, or even changing their shape altogether. He has fought and wiped the floor with some truly strong foes like Thor, Graviton, and of course the Hulk, and he never truly hit his upper limit of strength and power, even when he cleaned up all the oceans and threw all the Earth's trash into the sun. His universe became a safe haven for all the Spider-Men and Spider-Women in the multiverse when the Inheritors were hunting them down, because Captain Universe could defeat them, and his cosmic powers are gone when he leaves this dimension. Now unfortunately, he is consumed by Solus, who was allowed to get a hold of him and used his powers against him in Amazing Spider-Man number 11 in 2014, but if we don't think about that, we just look at all the other stuff, pretty powerful. Pretty unstoppable. Number 3, Cosmic Comic Spider-Man. Now look, I've talked about this version of Spider-Man a few times, and I'm sorry if it's getting old, but Nah, it's cool. The comic he appears in is actually just a guide on how to read comic books, and through the course of the story, it basically becomes a love letter to comic books themselves. It's really good if you love comic books, you should definitely check it out. In How to Read Comics the Marvel Way, issues 1 to 4, the comic itself becomes a character, and it starts off trying to teach the reader how exactly to read comics. The comic follows Spider-Man in a conflict with Mysterio, who found the Cosmic Comic, the same one speaking to us, in the basement of the Natural History Museum. It allowed Mysterio to freeze Spider-Man in time in a comic panel, turn inanimate objects to life, and increase his size. Now, after causing more problems by tearing the comic book in half, Peter Parker eventually learns that he himself is a comic book character. He can see all of time laid out as a comic panel. He trapped Mysterio in an airline passenger safety card, which is essentially a comic book if you think about it, and then he pulled him out of that comic. He created comic book shops to combat the dip in popularity of comics themselves, and he even breaks the fourth wall and begins to talk to the reader. Essentially, Spider-Man temporarily had control over comic books themselves, which if you think about it, is similar to, but even more powerful than the ability of a comic book character to warp reality. Number 2, Power of Love Spider-Man. Okay, so this isn't really an alternate version of Spider-Man. This is still 616 Peter, but merged with the nexus of all realities, gaining enough power to fight the Outrider. The story is actually a little difficult to follow and understand. It took me some time, so it may be because I'm just lacking in brain cells, or it may be that it's all very convoluted and the art isn't exactly clear. So if I get any information here wrong, feel free to correct me, please. But as for the power Spider-Man possesses here, he doesn't actually do much, aside from facing Outrider, that is, if you consider not doing much as destroying and recreating multiple different universes in order to save all of creation. So he does a lot. And that sentence alone does kind of speak volumes about the power that Spider-Man possessed for a little while. The story is in Peter Parker's Spider-Man Annual number 1, and you should definitely check it out so that you can figure out everything I just said, because I think I messed it up. Number 1, Beyonder Spider-Man. For this point, we are talking about regular old Peter Parker from Spider-Man and Secret Wars number 4, when he temporarily gains the powers of the Beyonder. Now, before Dr. Doom was granted the Beyonder's powers in Secret War, the Beyonder power actually went to 2 others. Once the power left the Beyonder himself, it actually went straight to Wolverine, who absolutely could not handle the power at all, so he almost immediately bestowed it onto Spider-Man. With this power, Spider-Man turns Doc Ock into plants, he obliterates a big group of villains, easily rips apart Ultron, literally stomps on the Molecule Man, and defeats Galactus with his fists. He brings a city from the 32nd century into the modern day, creating a new Parker City. He saves Uncle Ben on like 3 separate occasions, just bringing him back to life, like through reality. But then we learn that all this happened in like 1/10000000th of a second before Dr. Doom took the power back for himself, which is the way it ended up being and was supposed to be the whole way.
Number 10, Peter B. Parker. This alternate future version of Peter Parker hails from the Into the Spider-Verse multiverse. He is the older, mid-30s to approaching perhaps middle-aged Spider-Man, also known as Peter B. Parker, with the B in his name presumably standing for Benjamin, like the main continuity Peter of 616. In this reality, Peter is all grown up. He settles down with MJ only to later get divorced as Mary Jane wanted kids, but Peter wasn't ready. It's clear that this Peter Parker regrets some of his life choices, namely hurting MJ, and wants her back. He is pulled into Miles' reality thanks to Kingpin's Super Colliders experiments. Peter attempts to train Miles while also teaming up with him to defeat Kingpin and return both himself and the other alternate Spider folks back to their home realities before it's too late. Number 9, Officer Parker. In the alternate future of Earth X, Peter and Mary Jane's daughter May does not die and instead lives, growing up to become that reality's Venom. MJ dies of cancer before things start to get wild on Earth X, leaving Peter to take care of his daughter alone. Their relationship becomes strained as Peter doesn't believe that May can actually control the symbiote, when in reality, she can. In this future, Peter's identity is also revealed to the public by Norman Osborn when he takes over the Daily Bugle, which also runs the paper out of business due to the revelation that the hero they called a supposed menace had been on their payroll the whole time. Eventually, Peter is convinced to join the New York police force by Luke Cage, and he works hard to protect the people of New York and later their scarce food supply. When when the poles are reversed and New York freezes over as a result. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more lists about future alternate versions of Spidey, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. Final Stand Spider-Man. Not all future Spider-Men finish life happy, and not all of them even are still considered heroes in the end. With Final Stand Spider-Man, the world is a lot more bleak in this future. This is an alternate future version of Peter Parker from a possible future that Madam Web gets a glimpse into. Here, Peter Parker ends up killing Kraven the Hunter and goes on to kill Dr. Octopus. He ends up betraying those he loves, and in the end, when the NYPD hunt him down, giving him an opportunity to surrender and admit to his crimes, Spider-Man refuses. He is shot and killed in this final stand. Number 7. Avengers Forever. This is actually a version of future Spider-Man often referred to as Spider-Man 2099. Not the Spider-Man 2099 though, as I said, this is an alternate version of that alternate version of Spider-Man. This Spider-Man 2099 is still Miguel O'Hara, but instead of hailing from the 2099 reality of Earth 928, this version of Miguel hails from the reality of Earth 98120, as seen in the 90s comic series Avengers Forever. In this alternate future, Miguel ends up joining the Avengers, but unfortunately later meets his end at the totemic life force draining hands of Morlun the Inheritor during the Spider-Verse event. Number 6. The CEO. As we said before, not all future versions of Spider-Man are heroes. Case in point, the Peter Parker who is still alive in 2099, as seen in the story from the 2011 video game, Spider-Man Edge of Time. Here, Peter Parker lives on to the year 2099 thanks to anti-aging tech. He fakes his own death as Spider-Man and operates in the shadows, becoming the CEO of the company Alchemex. He is one of the villains of the game who Spider-Man 2099, Miguel O'Hara, must face in the end. Although Peter ends up a secret antagonist and villain, his goal at least is somewhat altruistic here. Peter wants to rewrite the timeline so that he can bring back all those that he's lost during his time as a hero. In the end, this Peter presumably gets erased from the time stream after a younger version of Peter Parker is convinced to not go down this path and never become the CEO of Alchemex. Number 5. Spider-Man 2211. Spider-Man 2211 is like Spider-Man 2099, but from even farther into the future. He is known as a time spinner and does his best to protect the time field. This version of Spider-Man is named Max Bourne, and his appearance also differs from the Spider-Man of Earth 616 and the Spider-Man of 2099 in the regard that his costume has multiple mechanized arms. Kinda like Dr. Octopus, or more specifically Dr. Octopus's look when he became Spider-Man and was known as Superior Spider-Man. Max Bourne's arch nemesis is Hobgoblin of 2211, who it turns out is actually his own daughter, Robin. Gasp. Along with Spider-Man of Earth 616 and Spider-Man of 2099, he faces and defeats Hobgoblin only for her true identity to be revealed to him. Number 4. Reign. Specifically, Spider-Man Reign. This future version of Spider-Man hails from an even bleaker reality than Final Stand Spider-Man, hailing from the comic known as Spider-Man Reign. Here, Peter ends up working at a flower shop after years of being a hero. No longer operating as Spider-Man, this version of Peter has become somewhat senile, frail, and old. He is also haunted by his past, having hallucinations of Mary Jane, who is now long dead. Mary Jane in this reality apparently died from being close to Peter, which he carries immense guilt over. Apparently his radioactiveness was not so good for MJ's body, ended up giving her cancer and sadly killed her in the end. Peter eventually does return to heroics, but even then it's a pretty sad return, with him mostly getting his butt whooped when he isn't busy being swept up in some kind of fantasy or hallucination of his past. Number 3. MC2. In the MC2 reality of Earth 982, Peter Parker actually gets to grow up and settle down with MJ. The two do end up married with kids, with daughter May, Mayday Parker, successfully being born. May grows up to have spider powers like her dad and eventually becomes known as the hero Spider-Girl, living up to her family legacy and becoming a hero in her own right herself. Peter and MJ in this reality also have another child, May's younger brother Benji. Benji as a youngster also displays abilities and powers. He also goes on to have an adventure as a little tyke with Carnage, unintentionally bonding with the symbiote. Fortunately, his older sister May is able to save him, although for a time Ben would actually suffer from permanent hearing loss as a result of that rescue. Number 2. Jerry Drew. In the same future that MC2 Peter hails from, known as the alternate reality of Earth 982, Jessica Drew, aka Spider-Woman, also has a child. MC2 is notoriously known for being the reality where superheroes get to grow up, retire, or settle down to live a somewhat normal life, possibly amidst continued heroics for those, of course, who don't retire. As such, Jessica is also one of those heroes. She gets married and ends up pregnant, but unfortunately her son Jerry is born with a rare bloodborne illness. In an attempt to cure Jerry, Jessica submits him to the same experimentation which saved her as a child and also gave her spider powers. The same happens to Jerry, who also gets spider powers and ends up becoming a hero, taking up the mantle, Spider-Man, after being inspired by stories that his mom tells him of her days as a hero and of Spider-Man's adventures. Number 1. Spider-Man 2099. What would a future Spider-Man list be without the future Spider-Man? That's right, we're talking about Miguel O'Hara, aka Spider-Man 2099. Or just Spider-Man really, as he's known in his own world, because it is 2099, so people don't just go like, hey, that's that hero 2099 and that's that villain 2099. 2099 is often thought of as being the future for the main comic book continuity of Earth 616. Here, Miguel wasn't always actually the most altruistic guy, which I think is part of what makes him so cool as a character. He's got flaws. And becoming Spider-Man is part of his journey to becoming a better person. He becomes better as an individual as he becomes a hero. Miguel also comes with a futuristic look and some future tech as well. He got powers after submitting himself to his own experiments in the hopes of ridding himself of an addiction that was forced on him by the company he worked for, Alchemex, in order to prevent him from quitting. That's a pretty intense way to try to get someone to not quit. Be like, well, we create this substance and we're gonna give it to you without you knowing, and now you have an addiction to it, and now you have to keep working for us if you want that thing. So there you go. But thank goodness Miguel found a way around that.
Coming in at number 10 is Earth 616. Most fans of Miles Morales know this already, but for those who aren't aware, the Miles Morales that has become the second Spider-Man and who all the alternate Miles are based on is actually not native to the main Marvel universe. That Miles actually comes from Marvel's Ultimate Universe, the Earth 1610 universe. So then, that kinda begs the question of who and where the heck is the main continuity Miles Morales? Well, he's there, but he is much different. Miles Morales was a member of the Rigoletto crime family who ended up with a 3-year sentence in Rikers Island to cover for his cousin, which got him the respect of the family and of Wilson Fisk, who Miles saved in prison. Miles and Fisk opened a restaurant together after they both got out, and when Wilson took over the crime family, he let Miles go and live a happy life with his wife. Unfortunately though, when his wife passed away, Miles went to find the same woman in an alternate universe, which brought him into conflict with Peter Parker and the main Miles Morales Spider-Man, and eventually brought him to Earth 1610, the Ultimate Universe, where he found his love again. Now when he returned to Earth 616, Miles had outfitted himself with an Ant-Man suit, Iron Man repulsors, and a Captain America looking shield, and he brought some friends in order to face his younger Miles counterpart and try and run the streets of New York once again. Number 9. Thor. Last year, in 2022, in case you were watching this from the future, we got a whole series of What If comics centered specifically around the character of Miles Morales, and each issue of that comic gave us a different Miles who had taken after a different hero. For the 4th issue of this series, the World Tree of Yggdrasil had found itself in Brooklyn, creating a version of Brooklyn that was Asgardified, or an Asgard that has been Brooklynified. I guess, you pick. In case you haven't guessed, the Miles Morales of temporary reality number 951 has indeed become Thor Odin's son. All the other classic pillars of the Thor mythos are here too, substituted with Miles' mom and dad for Frigga and Odin, his friends substituting as the Warriors 3, and of course his uncle Aaron as the trickster god Loki, who tricks Thor Odin's son Morales into stealing the skull of the frost giant Laufey in order to impress his pops. If you check this one out, please let me know what you think of all the rhyming and rapping this version of Miles tries to do, and if it made you cringe, like it made me cringe, because it really did make me cringe like quite a lot. Why did they do that? I don't know. Number 8. Ultimate Spider-Ham. Spider-Ham is one of the most popular alternate versions of Spider-Man out there, but he is just an alternate version of Peter Parker. Luckily for us, his popularity coupled with the popularity of Miles Morales gave us Miles Morhames. Yes, that is his name, and he is the ultimate Spider-Pig. As is the case in seemingly all universes, Miles' uncle was secretly a masked criminal known in this universe as the Fowler. One of the items Fowler had stolen turned out to be a radioactive spider, which is the one that bit Miles, granting him his spider abilities. Following the passing of the original Spider-Ham when he defeated the Green Gobbler once and for all, Miles stepped up to take his mantle in order to become the ultimate Spider-Ham. The world that Miles hailed from, Earth 14094, ended up actually being destroyed by Dr. Doom after the world was saved from Galactopus, who, he's not an octopus, but get this, Galactus is a platypus. I mean, come on. I feel like I'm way too excited about this. After the destruction of his reality, Miles traveled the multiverse warning other universes of how to protect themselves against calamity until he arrived on Earth 1610, where he stayed. Number 7. Hulk. I wasn't done with the What If Miles Morales stories yet. I can't just give you guys one of those awesome Miles Moraleses. I can give you all the Miles Moraleses. Yeah, Miles Morales in this issue is very much like his normal self until the day that Uncle Aaron made a deal with Emil Blonsky. Aaron found himself in possession of a suspicious briefcase. Noticing a spider on said briefcase, Miles attempted to kill it, but instead accidentally knocked over the briefcase, which caused him to step on a nuclear cartridge, exposing himself to gamma radiation, and well, he got Hulkified in the middle of the night. Miles tries to keep his transformations on the down low and under control, enlisting the help of his friend Genki, who didn't believe him until Miles stepped on a Lego, which, as we all should know, causes a rage and turned him into the Hulk. Eventually, Miles spied on his uncle as the Prowler as he was dealing with Emil, which is when his uncle made an attempt at Emil's life. Now during their kerfuffle, another briefcase was dropped and Uncle Aaron also found himself being exposed to gamma radiation, but this time he was turned into the Abomination. Number 6. Into the Spider-Verse. Yes, of course we have to talk about the version of Miles Morales appearing in the awesome animated Spider-Verse movies. Voiced by actor Shameik Moore, this version of Miles Morales brought the character to a very large audience with an origin story that differed slightly from his original counterpart, but it also still retains enough elements of that original story, which I believe is part of the reason his universe designation is Earth 1610B instead of having its own separate reality number. The best part of this Miles Morales though is when the Spider-Verse opens up and he gets to interact with the various other Spider-Men and women across the multiverse. The first movie was an absolute hit. It had a dope soundtrack, an amazing animation style with a superb cast, hilarious writing, and a heap of heartfelt moments. Now I have yet to see the sequel, but I am super excited to see where this Miles Morales goes with his story. Number 5. Mayor. This version of Miles Morales comes at us from the series known as The End, which basically chronicles the final stories of various different heroes in the Marvel landscape. Some of the most famous of these stories have been The Hulk The End and Deadpool The End, but for Miles Morales, his possible alternate future takes place decades from now in a ravaged place that was once New York City. Most places on Earth had been ravaged by monsters known as the Germs, with Brooklyn being one of the few places that had been saved and protected by this massive shield. Side note, I like how germs are the monsters here. Like, it's kind of like all those things you learn about as kids when germs were like little monsters, but now they're actual monsters. Kind of hilarious, kind of cool. I don't know. But after becoming Spider-Man and letting the world know his identity, Miles was chosen as mayor of Brooklyn and as its protector. He faced off against a Captain America wannabe known as Captain Last and his One America army of raiders. After Captain Last eventually merges with a germ in order to attack Brooklyn, Miles sacrifices his life to bring the Captain down and save the lives of everyone in Brooklyn. Good job. Way to go. Number 4. Wolverine. Yep, it's another Miles Morales what if, and I don't know why Wolverine is the last person I expected to see in this series, but I'm extremely okay with it. Miles Morales in this world is instead a mutant with the same abilities as Wolverine. When he is younger, Miles is stolen away alongside other children by Weapon X, who turn him into the adamantium skeleton superweapon just like the regular Wolverine. Now fast forward a few years, and now in this world, Sentinels are being used to hunt down mutants by S.H.I.E.L.D. And after Miles takes out like 3 of them, S.H.I.E.L.D. sends this super cool looking warrior wielding an adamantium katana to take Miles out. This awesome S.H.I.E.L.D. warrior turns out to be Miles' father, and once he discovers this Wolverine mutant is his own son, he instead turns on S.H.I.E.L.D., which is when they send in Miles' uncle Aaron, who seems to be this world's version of Sabretooth. Miles' father defends his son to his dying breath until Miles jumps in to beat Sabretooth to a pulp and almost ends him before his father convinces him not to and to instead be a hero. It all wraps up with the X-Men showing up to recruit Miles, but led by Professor X, who is Genki Lee. It's just wild, it's so cool. Number 3, Vision Miles. No, this is not a highly advanced android version of Miles Morales. It is, in fact, the Miles Morales who exists in a possible future shown to us in a vision from the inhuman precog known as Ulysses Kane. The reason I want to talk about this seemingly insignificant version of Miles Morales who only appeared in a vision is because this Miles was able to take the life of Captain America. Now obviously Captain America is not an indestructible guy. He's not the most powerful hero and he could probably be taken out by any number of heroes, but the respect that Captain America carries and the influence he has makes him one of those characters that you simply do not see being taken out very often. So, to see it happen here in Civil War II at the hands of Miles Morales on the steps of the ruined United States Capitol building in the reality of Earth 61115 is one hell of a shocking image. I want to know what happens after Miles does this, but we won't know until a writer decides to take the initiative to put out a story set in this alternate crazy reality. Number 2, the Falcon. Temporary reality number 852 gave us a Miles whose history is similar to his Earth 1610 counterparts, only he never gained powers from a genetically engineered spider. Instead, this Miles' favorite heroes were the totally underrated Nighthawk and his sidekick and partner, the Falcon. Unfortunately, like how Spider-Man lost his life to the Goblin in the Ultimate reality, in this one, it's the Falcon that ultimately croaked at the hands of the Goblin. This devastated Miles, and he took it as his opportunity to take the reins. Creating a costume similar to the Falcon's using his electrical engineering skills, Miles aided Nighthawk as he was battling the villains Scorpion and Scorpia. But Nighthawk was not too receptive to this pretender coming in and trying to replace his old partner. Wanting to prove to Nighthawk that he could be a hero, Miles created the Young Squadron with Kid Spectrum and Girl Power. While Miles and the Young Squadron were fighting the Wrecking Crew, Miles was stolen away by the Goblin's partner Deadpool, who was attempting to make sure the Falcon Mantle never came back. Deadpool was eventually defeated by the other members of the Young Squadron, and after handing Deadpool over to Nighthawk, Miles and the Young Squadron decided to be a better team than the other heroes of their reality. And finally, in at number 1, Captain America. Yes, we are rounding off today's list with the very first of the What If Miles Morales stories, which in my opinion is one of the best. In the very first issue, Miles' dad is part of the new super soldier program inspired by the original that created Captain America. Uncle Aaron, who always plays a large part in Miles' life, steals the super soldier serum and keeps it in his fridge, which is where Miles finds it looking for a drink. It turns out Miles is actually a perfect match for the serum, and he becomes the new Captain America. It's super cool because not only is Miles the new Cap, but Tiana Toombs becomes the Falcon and Sam Wilson becomes the new director of S.H.I.E.L.D. with the eye patch and everything. Uncle Aaron becomes Prowler after being attacked by Black Widow, and Lonnie Lincoln is the Grey Skull, which is this reality's Red Skull. Miles here seems to be just as powerful as the normal Captain America, if not a little younger and by extension, a little bit more naive.